I speak to you in the name of the living God, Blessed Trinity, and lover of your souls. I bet you the candles were pre-lit and the plates were already on the table. And something like the smell of poached fish and dumplings or brisket and roast chicken, maybe in a stew of potatoes, carrots, and prunes filled the air. We don't know all that the disciples ate for their meal together on that night, but we know that there was likely some matzah. You know, that flat bread with no leaven you can buy at Unger's Kosher Bakery in Cleveland Heights. We know that there was likely some matzah on the table because the text tells us that Passover is approaching. And Maundy Thursday is the night we remember that special once-a-year Seder meal. I wonder if the Seder meal is something that the community of the disciples of Jesus did regularly. Perhaps they got together weekly to usher in the Sabbath together, to rest from their long work week. That meal might have been the evening they most looked forward to each week, a dinner party with their closest friends and favorite mentor. Can you picture it? Your special group that always gets together at the edges of the weekend to swap stories from work, retell the group memories that make everyone laugh, discuss current events, drink a few cups of wine, recline at the table until the night blends into the morning. This meal may have been what glued the group together, what reminded the disciples what it means to be friends, family, a community of faith. On this particular night, as the meal is about to begin, Jesus stands up, which I imagine was not unusual. The disciples were probably used to him offering a teaching or a prayer. But this time, after he stands, he kneels. And in his hands are a pitcher of water and a towel. This is normally a meal of friends, but today Jesus becomes his friend's servant. After Jesus attempts to touch Peter's feet, it becomes clear to us that receiving this strange gift of a foot washing at their dinner party is hard for those closest to Jesus. I imagine it was not a part of the weekly gathering. You just had to make it weird, Jesus. And maybe he did. Maybe he wanted to get their attention. Maybe even to prepare them for what was coming next. You see, we often focus on the foot washing on Maundy Thursday, but I wonder if the foot washing is a precursor to the real meat of the evening's dinner party. The moment I'm referring to is one that the lectionaries often skip, but it's an experience we all live through at one time or another. Listen to these words of Jesus that were passed over in the lectionary this night. Jesus was troubled in spirit and declared, "Very truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he was speaking. One of his disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter therefore motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So while reclining next to Jesus, he asked him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus answered, "It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." So when he had dipped the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, son of Simon Iscariot. After he received the piece of bread, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, "Do quickly what you are going to do." Now no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the common purse, Jesus was telling him, "Buy what we need for the festival," or he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the piece of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. You see, in between the washing of the disciples' feet and Jesus' soliloquy on love, the Messiah was noticeably upset, agitated, perhaps even terrified, as the Greek word used is sometimes translated. The words, "Jesus was troubled in spirit," brings to mind an image of Jesus' breathing changing as these words come off his trembling lips, "One of you will betray me." Betrayal. In Greek, this word metaphorically focuses on hands. Someone close to you hands you over to someone else, takes away your power, commits you to something against your will. But Jesus's description this night focuses on feet. After all, he just touched everyone's toes in the room, including Judas's. After Jesus acknowledges the betrayal of Judas, he cries aloud one of the Psalms of David, "Even my bosom friend, in whom I trusted, who ate of my bread, has lifted the heel against me." To lift the heel against someone is to plan to kick them. It's a sign of contempt from someone who called himself Jesus' friend. Maundy Thursday isn't just about foot washing. It's about betrayal. It's about a close friend's disloyalty shared at a dinner party. It's a night of heartbreak. And if we omit that betrayal, like the lectionaries do on this night, we diminish the power of Jesus' love that follows. Consider the betrayals in your own life, the ones from the people who once sat around your table together. Who would you be today if the betrayals were erased? How have they shaped your understanding of friendship, of love, of family? Now, I have no desire to glorify the suffering we endure in this life. But I do believe that without acknowledgement of the pain and suffering that our most trusted relationships can cause us when they fail us, we cannot find our way to the truth, what it means to be human, to be Christian, what it means to do as Jesus taught us, to love one another. But when we acknowledge the betrayal, then the lectionary choices for ending the story of Maundy Thursday finally make sense. The Book of Common Prayer ends the passage just as Jesus directs the disciples to wash one another's feet. And the moral of the story becomes, just as Jesus has washed the feet of the one whom he knew was about to betray him, so should you. And the Revised Common Lectionary concludes the evening perfectly. Love one another, yes, love even the one who has just betrayed you. No matter where we see Jesus in this passage, either awaiting an impending betrayal or standing in the wreckage of the aftermath of Judas leaving the room, Jesus keeps on loving. He loves every foot at the dinner table. And if we leave that passage at the foot washing, we never get to the betrayal. And if we skip the betrayal and jump to the loving one another bit, then we diminish the power of love. And if we omit the betrayal, we can pretend that Judas is not one of the disciples whom we must also love. And therefore we can pretend that we do not need to love those who betray us. Now let me say here what I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you how to love. Love takes on different forms and different circumstances. Jesus loved Judas to the end, to Judas's end, and to Jesus's. And sometimes love means the ending of a relationship. I can't tell you what love is supposed to look like in your unique experiences of betrayal, but I can tell you that it's supposed to be there, somehow, somewhere. Jesus didn't direct his disciples to love one another in spite of the betrayal of that night, but rather because of it. Because Jesus knew this night wouldn't be the last betrayal any of them would face. As we all clumsily work our way toward Jesus' commandment to love one another, we will have to face betrayals. And perhaps that's what these Maundy Thursday lectionary omissions can teach us. That in order to get to the real loving, we can't omit the real betrayals. Betrayal is a part of the meaning making we must do to understand Jesus' death. And it is also a part of the meaning making we must do to understand Jesus' love. Perhaps betrayal is a part of the meaning making we must do to understand our love, too. After all, today is Maundy Thursday, and Maundy comes from the same word we get the English word mandate from. Tonight is the night Jesus gives us the mandate and the modeling of that greatest commandment: love one another.